Well, you have about 15 restaurants all over the world right now.
Right now we have 15. We have two groups of restaurants. We have Jean-Georges Enterprise, which we have 15 restaurants, and we have a new group that is called Culinary Concept by Jean-Georges, which have another 15. So this week we open our 30th restaurant in Puerto Rico. So we have 30 restaurants.
And what is that like, managing 30 restaurants?
I mean, it took about 20 years. My first one was in '91, so it took about 20 years to build what we have today. But in a way, it's fairly simple because we have 10 restaurants in New York that we're managing ourselves. So we own them, we manage them, plus the one in Paris. So 11 restaurants out of the 30 are really managed by my group, Jean-Georges Enterprise. And then the other 19 are in partnership with they're more like licensed. So like in Shanghai, we just opened Puerto Rico. So we have a local partner who is really running the business for us. So my focus is on basically very simple. It's just the menu, the design, on training the staff. So it's easy.
And Cedric, you're the executive. And now you're the executive chef at Paris Street, which is one of Jean-Georges' restaurants.
Yeah.
So how often do you work together?
We work on a weekly basis. I mean, every time. First of all, Paris Street, we work a lot with season. We change dishes pretty often, and every time I change the dish, obviously I call Jean-Georges, to come over and to basically advise me and tell me, which direction, taste the dish, maybe a little more lime juice, a little more salt, this and that, tweak around the dish. So we work pretty close together with every dish.
I mean, we talk every day on the phone, we probably see each other like one or twice a week. So, I mean, I live upstairs, so
yeah.
He has to behave, he's just below me.
by the window and
I'm looking, restaurant's full, nuts.
Do you
at work or not?
do you ever go and make funny faces at him while he's working?
No. I respect what he's running the restaurant. I mean, he was a sous chef at Jean-Georges for a couple of years, and then so the first time he stepped into the kitchen was actually when we opened the Bahamas 10 years ago.
And
you were what, 19 at the time?
No, I was 17 at that time.
17 at the time. See, I make him older. But so it's the first time he stepped into the kitchen and to help us to open. He wanted to see. I tried to push him away. I wanted him to be a doctor, a lawyer, because I don't think it's a gift this business, because when everybody is going out for dinner, you have to work until midnight every night. So I'm doing this for 38 years now, and I don't think it's the easiest life in the world. So I wanted him to really do something else, try to find his own passion. My father offered me his company, and I hated it, and I walked away from it. So for me, I wanted him to really find his own. But he came back and he wanted to do it. So
I was persistent.
So what was it about the kitchen that attracted you so much, despite your father's persuasion to not do it?
I mean, officially I started like 17 years old in the Bahamas, but way before that, I mean, when he was at Lafayette, I was in the kitchen with him. I was almost grew up in the kitchen basically, because he spent most of his time in the kitchen. I had to go in the kitchen, to visit him and see him in there. So then at 14 years old, on my own way, I kind of work in different places, stage in different places in France to see for myself if that's really what I wanted to do. I went to to Ducasse, Jacques Chibois, different big chef in France, and then at 17 years old, that's when we can discuss, and he's like, okay, let's go in Bahamas. We're starting right now. He sent me over there, and that was it.
Asked me, so he did his own stage, his own little research on his own, and I said, do something else. You stay in school, pursue something else. It's much easier than this life is like just, it's fine if you don't really have a passion for it. It's not for you,
And are you happy with the decision that you made?
Absolutely. I don't see, anything else I would do. Basically, that's my passion. That's what I love to do, and that's good.
It's a good palate, so
Thank you.
which helps. I mean, that's the tools you really have as a chef is really understanding the season. But if you don't have a good way of seasoning on palates, and it's like me, he likes to please people. I think this business, if you just cook for yourself, sometimes chefs are not very successful. So, but if you cook for a public, you want to please people. I came to the business because I want to please. When I was a young kid, I was organizing birthday party for when I was 7 years old for my cousin, everybody always called me up and say, "Oh, can you organize my birthday party?" So I'm an entertainer since I'm very little. On the food business, I think is owning a restaurant, cooking in the kitchen. The food is one aspect, but I think it's about creating an ambiance. We entertain, you know.
So how do you go about trying to please other people's palates and not just your own palate?
I think you try to please yourself too, because I think food today is very personal. People call it fusion. I think for customer, they need to put a label on a restaurant. This is Italian, this is Thai, this is this is that. But I believe that food is very personal today. The food I cook is because of my travel. All the souvenirs from Asia, from wherever I go. I just came back from Puerto Rico. I spent 5 days over there, and I saw a lot of things I'm gonna bring back here. Like combinations of things and on dishes. And so for me, travel is an inspiration. On pleasing people is what I do. For me, the biggest pleasure is to see somebody eating and having a smile and come back. You really try to create something that people create cravings and brings back people to your restaurant. Mm-hmm. And I think he understands that too.
I think I do the same. Yeah,
Closer.
Come on, closer, man.
Like the thing when you say people happy, whatever. I do the same thing. I kind of poke my head upstairs and maybe on the first bite I try to look at the expression of people, if they nod their head, if they close their eyes when they're eating it, and that's the best reward. After all those hours of working, the whole team downstairs, when you see that, it's the best thing. Mm-hmm.
Because I hear that a lot of chefs don't really have that gratification because usually they're in the kitchen, so they don't get to go out into the dining hall and actually get to see the people eating it and enjoying it.
Open kitchen, yeah, you don't really see those things. So you encourage me, to go in the dining room and to look what's going on, to see the reaction of people. Then I bring back downstairs and I tell that to my cook, which reward everybody basically. Yeah.
It's a connection, customer and chefs, and it's a connection today. I mean, when I started cooking in 1973, my parents said to me, "You want to go into cooking? You must be kidding." In '73 was like the retarded jobs. People who they throw out of school, and the rejects were going to kitchen to peel and chop, and it was really not as glamorous as it is today. So I think the press and the shows now on TV. I mean, the last 38 years, everything changed. But when I started in '73, it was like being a chef was like, being a dishwasher was the same thing, or being it was not a very rewarding job at the time, But I loved it, every minute of it. So.
And I understand that you came to the U.S. in 1986.
1986.
And you started a French restaurant called Lafayette.
That's right.
And how would you say that the restaurant scene in New York has changed since then?
I mean, everything changed. I mean, we got lucky. I mean, I would say me, probably Daniel. I mean, Gilbert Locos when he was alive. Many chefs, American chefs as well, David Boulet and Alfred Portal. We all basically started at the same time, because when I arrived in '86, we had a lot of the classic restaurants like Lutèce, La Grenouille, La Caravelle. Those were only the French staple. So very, 70s, 60s style of food. On the Italian restaurant were here, the Chinese restaurant were here. So there was already a nice scene of restaurants, but nothing kind of different, because you couldn't find any product. I remember in '86 when I arrived, I went to Union Square Market. There was nothing there. Apples, potatoes. I went to Chinatown. It was like a whole array of beautiful vegetables. And after spending 5 years in Asia, I arrived in New York in '86. Was like, so I really went to Chinatown to do all my shopping because there was nothing else. The food was flying in from Europe. You couldn't find small vegetables. I was a company called Flying Food, was bringing everything from Europe, from Rungis, from Italy. So there was not really like a little artisan doing cheese or vegetables. So on '86, I think it was a whole movement of things changing everywhere. It was already happening in California with Alice Water in the late '70s, early '80s. But in New York was very behind in terms of products, on produce, on things like that. So we all ride the same wave, and we were very lucky to arrive at that time, because Zagat started in '87, I think. All the food guides, all the started at the same time. So we got lucky to really arrive in New York and help to change the food scene here.
What would you say was the largest cultural influence in the 1980s? Would you say that was French cuisine?
No, I think all kind of cuisines, but French was regarded as a more fancy, more fine dining, more 4-star type. So, on coming from France, I was there was a lot of consulting chefs in New York. Like Roger Verger was consulting. I came with Louis Houtier from France, who was consulting as well. So many chefs who were exported to New York came with a chef. The same thing as I'm doing now, consulting in Shanghai, consulting in London, Paris. So there was a whole movement of hotels and private owners who were calling for chefs from Italy, from France to come here to the. It was a big migration of chefs. There was a big migration 200 years ago of Italians and Irish and everybody else. And I think the mid-'80s was really a big migration of chefs coming over here, looking for opportunities and bringing something different to New York City, and to the entire country.
And so, Cedric, what would you say is one of the largest cultural influences? What would you say would be the largest cultural influence now?
I mean, it's a melting pot, New York City. So it's like you say, whatever the chef travels, in Japan, wherever country you go, you bring back. It's all over the place right now. We go a little more like towards modern, since El Bulli started like 5-6 years ago. We're going to a little more modern, a little more foam, things like that. But I don't know. It's whatever you want to do. There's no limit basically right now. You can do whatever you feel.
That's why I say it's more personal. Food today is more personal than I mean, in the 80s it was like Italian, French, Asian, whatever. That's why I started to mix things up in the 80s. Because I was after 5 years in Asia, I was probably one of the early chefs who used ginger, lemongrass in the food, and people were surprised. I think New Yorkers love to be surprised by food, on new combinations and new things. And because on the end, if you think about the ingredients are pretty much the same. The food groups are the same. You have all the poultry with the chicken, the duck, the quail, the game birds. You have the meat, which is really very limited. You have pork, lamb, beef. Then you have the games as well. And same thing with the fish. There's no new fish coming out of the ocean every morning. We're dealing with the same product. So I think today what people do is really the young chef. It's been doing that for a long time. But yes, it's the old organic chicken. But if you put a little licorice, it becomes a new chicken. So I think people are looking for familiar fare. They're looking for the same proteins, but with a new technique, how to cook it, how to present it, on a new combination of flavors. And I think that's what Yes, it's a shrimp, but wow, I never had it this way. Like with coconut or cranberry or spice, no spice. Depends. So for me, that's what food is today. It's very personal, experience, and then you put it on the table, and people have a good time with it, or not. I learned to eat sushi in New York City. I never had sushi before. I had sushi in Japan, but really, I discovered sushi when I came here in '86. I went to a couple of Japanese restaurants, and and it was, on the last 15 years, sushi. I eat sushi twice a week.
Every Sunday we got a sushi.
Some soba, some sushi, or we go to seki. We go to. I love sushi. It's the food for today. People are looking for something more. And I think it's about variety today. It's about, and you have to follow your mood. Sometimes people make a reservation a month ahead in an Italian restaurant, but the months after, I feel like sushi tonight, but I have a reservation in an Italian restaurant. So you have to follow your mood and your cravings. Otherwise, you don't have a good time.
And I know that Japanese ramen now is becoming very popular. How often do you eat Japanese ramen? Do you like it?
I go maybe once a month. Ippudo, all those, those places. I like it. It's fun. It's good. But just once a month, I think. I can't. Not like sushi. Like it's a craving for me as well. He's the one that made me love also sushi when I came, New York City, Sushi Seki, all those places. That I go like two, three times a week probably.
Can you cook it?
I can not as well as those chefs been training for years and years. That's their expertise. I can do it, but not as fast and not as well as them. But yeah.
Yeah, even in sushi, there's so many so many new style of sushi now. People are brushing up with different toppings, and sushi is not sushi. You have traditional sushi, and you have chefs who are doing things, incredible things with raw fish and rice and rolls and
sashimis. We do our own sashimi. Like here we have a sashimi. As Jean-Georges, we do some different thing. It's
all the restaurants, all the menus we have a lot of always 2-3 raw dishes. That's the craving of the people today. People, you need the variety. You need to have a pasta on the menu. You need to have sushi on the menu. Raw dishes. Doesn't matter how you do it. I think people, if you have a restaurant where you combine a little bit of everything to please everybody, because think about it, you have a table of 6 people coming tonight. You're in the mood for something raw on a salad. I'm in the mood for a steak. He's in the mood for a pasta. He's in the mood for something. If your menu is not diverse enough, you know the 4 of the 6 people are not going to be too happy about what's on the menu because you focused on only inners, for example. But I don't eat inners. I eat inners. But if you don't eat inners or somebody else only, so I think a menu today has to be really well thought. Has to have the style of the restaurant. I mean, here's the style of Cedric. But you really need to. Everybody needs to understand how to do a menu. The menu engineering is very important to have a successful restaurant. I believe.
And in recent years, especially with David Chang, Korean food has also become very popular. What are your thoughts on Korean food?
I have a new challenge. My wife now starts cooking. She has a show coming up on every weekend now. She's cooking things. I'm cooking things. It's like Iron Chef at home. I think Korean food is probably the next new. The next 2-3 years, you can see a lot of Korean flavor coming out. I mean, David Chang already started it, of course. On people are eating Korean food in Koreatown for many years, but it's been many barbecue on bulgogi on the staple. But I mean it's funny because I did a show last week with the last taping we did in the house with my wife last weekend, and they asked me to come up with street food, but Korean style. I said, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So we come up with dishes who are amazing. I'm gonna put them on the menu everywhere. I did a hot dog, grilled hot dog on a bun, with some hot Korean mustard, and I did a kimchi relish. So chopped the kimchi very thin with a little bit of honey, on rice vinegar on top of the hot dog. It was a 10 out of 9. And then we did what else we did? Oh, I did a lobster roll, like a New England lobster roll, but I mixed. I love that Japanese mayonnaise, the
sweet mayonnaise.
What's it called? Kepi? No, I forget the name. Yeah. Japanese mayonnaise mixed with some gochujang.
Oh yeah.
A little bit of celery and things. It was something that was really terrific. So his wife is Indonesian.
I mean, she cooks every night for me. She does different, a lot of use of the chili, fermented chilies with some shrimp paste in it. I mean, now I feel like at beginning 2 years ago she was eating more spicier than me. Now I can eat much more spicier than her. My level of spiciness is much higher. But I like to use
incorporating some of the flavor too.
Yeah, some marja. Basically, every day I'm kind of the guinea pig as well. Every day she brings downstairs, some of the Korean food she's practicing upstairs for her cookbook in the show. Homemade kimchi, things like that, and I kind of fell in love with the gochujang. That I'm starting to work with the dish with a cod. It's kind of like a chili glaze on top of it. For me, there's the balance of spiciness, sweetness with it. I mean, it's perfect. It doesn't need that much to it. It's easy to make. I mean, you just gotta buy it basically and tweak it around basically.
I don't know if are we pronouncing it right? Gochujang.
Gochujang.
Gochujang. I think it's a new flavor for me.
Yeah. It's a little sweet. It's not too spicy.
You have you have a sweet one. You have a spicier one. I like the spicier one, but I enjoy the chili flakes as well. And just the combinations are really. The ingredients are very. There's not that many. It's like in Thai food. You have the soy, the brown rice vinegar, the gochujang, the chili flakes, and you can do some endless combination of it. It works with fish. It works with meat. It works with a lot of things. So we're big fans.
So Cedric, I actually have a question for you. I don't think I could imagine working with my parents. So what is it like working with your father in the same business?
I have to say, at the beginning was pretty tough because that it's his way. So he had to teach me everything. Had to be clean, organized. The palate, the flavors was looking for. So the first few years obviously was tougher on me, but as I got better and as I got following his way, his mentality, we started to work together, and now it's fun. It's actually good. I learned so much from him. It's a good experience. Yeah.
So your father?
I'm sorry. It's not like we're working in the same restaurant. So he's running here. Not anymore. We worked for 2 years. So now he runs his own little. I think it was a good first step for Cedric to run a 50-seat restaurant. the smallest restaurant we have in a company, in a group. But I think it's good for him to, you know.
I start creating. I mean, expressing myself. You know, having my own little crew, and like starting to create my dish with him supervising, obviously. But I don't regret at all. It's fun. It's good.
So your father has provided you with a lot of guidance, and in what ways has your son actually taught you about cooking?
I mean, Cedric, you know, has a good approach, you know, of food, and I think the kindness too. You know, it's like I think in this business you have to be really. You can be a dictator, you know, when you run a restaurant. You have to be really. So you really, in terms of managing, because being a chef and running a kitchen with talking to the customer, it's not easy for everyone, you know, to really to be a manager as well, because you have, on the end, you have to be a cook but a kitchen manager as well.
Exploring two generations of New York's culinary history with Jean-Georges and Cedric Vongerichten, this is Caroline Shin with the Chef's Connection.
This is it. It's a little more cozy. People will say, how should you end up in the middle there?
I know, that's what I feel like it's going to be so weird, like all of a sudden the sign-off is like right here.
I'm getting this all on tape.